What's up, everybody?
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. You know what time it is. Listen, let's just get right into it, okay? Everyday conversations are like really the building blocks. Remember building blocks in preschool? They're the building blocks of human relationships. They shape our perceptions of others, ourselves, the way we communicate with others, can either encourage or discourage. We should be looking to encourage rather than discourage. And conversations come down to a few things, right? Word choices, okay? Tone of voice, probably the most important of all the things I'm going to name. And nonverbal, so that's body language, facial expression. All of those things are critical and very, very crucial in determining whether a person hears you or receives the message that you are trying to give in your communication and how it impacts their feelings. Okay. So listen, whether you are trying to be a better conversationalist, okay, overall, or whether you've had a couple conversations that have left you feeling some type of way and you aren't quite sure why that is, you should keep it locked and stay tuned for all of the 90s children that was watching Park and whatnot, because this episode is for you.
Hi, I'm Pam Williams, a mother.
And I'm Jessica E. Williams, a daughter. And this is a mother and a daughter truthful chat, where we discuss our 35-year multi-layered relationship.
We've been through so many ups and downs. Not only are we family, but we're business partners in the high-stress world of event planning and production for short films.
We've also shared the same therapist for over 10 years. What some people call codependence, we call collaboration.
So join us as we share stories from our lives,
have candid conversations with other mother-daughter duos,
and shed light on the roller coaster ride of being a woman while raising a woman.
All right, y'all. Welcome.
Well, let's just say this, since you told me I looked.
She did. She looked very raggedy.
We have been celebrating a lot. This is what you say you're going to be talking about, and then it happens. I cannot tell you. We probably have been out every night,
and we don't really
except last night since last Thursday, like every single night. So
you know, it's my birthday.
Actually,
the first
last
week of
Tuesday.
June. It's like it's been a lot of outings, Father's Day, this, that, and that. Anyway,
we've been celebrating.
Welcome to Truthful Chats. Okay. These episodes are designed to get us to the ongoing practice of creating generational wellness. If you have no idea what that is, you ain't never heard those terms before, just look in the description box wherever you're watching this video. There'll be a description of that. Okay. So how do we here at Create Generational Wellness YouTube, our channel, our space? Okay. There's a theme of the month, and in the Truthful Chat topics, unpack that thing just a little bit. So in conjunction to Pam's last words. Conjunction, junction. June's word is celebrate. And that's exactly what we've been doing. Celebrating, going out. Yeah, I went out this week, karaoke with some people.
I know.
So we just went out. We've been
to an open mic night. It's your dad's birthday next week.
It was
Juneteenth. Go out again.
Okay.
It's Juneteenth. So, it was June 8th.
It's the age of pleasure. Shout out to I'm making things up. Anyway, the theme for this.
We went to see the Marvel Secret Invasion, which is really
highly
good.
recommend Secret Invasion.
Go see that.
Shout out to Unc and the team. So anyway, the theme is celebrate for June, and we have been doing just that. And today's episode is celebrations and everyday conversations, okay, which we sort of alluded to in the opener. So let's just jump right in, okay? When we talk about conversations or anything, as we normally do here, that has to do with your emotions, your relationships, things of that nature, that's really emotional intelligence. I'm not going to assume everybody's heard that word before, but it's a pretty popular buzzword in mental and emotional health spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And so emotional intelligence is literally the ability to identify and manage your own emotions and in turn the emotions of others. Now, I didn't say manipulate people with your emotions. I say you know your emotions, therefore you should be able to be in touch with your emotions, therefore you could be in touch with other people's emotions. We ask you to read signs and cues, okay?
If you see people make this face, you probably said something. You might want to check.
Just saying. So understanding your emotions and how they affect you personally, hopefully will impact your communication style, because you'll know what's going on with you. Therefore, you can, figure out how you're going to communicate with others based on how you feel in some type of moment, or if it's just not appropriate to say anything in that moment.
Ooh.
We'll get
That's a
back to
word.
that later. If when the spirit drops it, you just gotta go.
That's
Sometimes shut it up, Mary Warren.
Yes.
Or do the walk away for all my brothers out there that be like, the walk away is not appreciated. Sometimes when I be getting arguments and I walk away from her, they don't appreciate that because it can escalate to some other things. So anyway, emotional intelligence is very crucial to communication because it makes you aware of your own emotions, therefore hopefully makes you emotionally intelligent about your emotions and the emotions of others. Therefore, you can communicate more readily and nicely and better. And then better communication helps you with empathy overall, which is the goal. Okay, for you to see yourself through the eyes of another person, so that y'all are on the same wavelength as human beings, sharing space and time on this little planet of ours that is increasingly crazy every day. We're not going to talk about the rich white men that went in the Titanic, but that just is really. I don't know. Anyway, it's just always something. Anyway, so we're really big proponents here at Create Generational Wealth. So everybody can improve their communication, right? It's very, very important. You can increase your emotional intelligence about yourself and other people. And all of those things lead to better knowledge of self, better relationships with others. And it's just an important pillar in this thing that we like to call building generational wellness. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
Right. And so a lot of people, we forgot our teacups. We did forget our teacups. A lot of people know what emotional intelligence is, but conversational intelligence is something that you don't hear as much about, but it is the same thing. It's the practice of building trust through the conversations that you're having with people and creating safe spaces. So it involves listening very actively, asking questions that are meaningful questions that are based on what you just heard the person say.
Which means you really got to pay attention. Some of y'all are great small talkers, small chatters, but your eyes be super glazed over. You know you didn't hear nothing you said.
Yep. So it involves active listening, like I said, open-ended questions. And so when you do that, you're building rapport with others, you're establishing a safe space, you're making it possible that this bridge, this communication relationship bridge can be built and you can make it stronger, and it's going to help improve your relationships.
Ideally. So let's break this down a little bit further. Where you going?
I was just going to say, people don't realize that's a skill that you can actually teach, but we're going to talk about it a little bit more. So
very true.
Keep going.
So emotional intelligence, conversational intelligence, right? But let's break down this whole conversation thing. Okay, let's just break that down a little bit, because I feel like we take communication for granted. We all talk to each other all day, every day, all the time, which is why this is not really a skill. It's like, if you know how to talk, you should learn how to communicate.
Talking and communicating are
two different things. And or conversate. That's not a word, by the way. I've grown up in the culture for a very long time, and y'all be out here. We was conversating. It's converse. That's the word. I'm not mad at the conversate. If I'm talking to you and you say conversate, I just know what's up. You know what I'm saying? But it's converse. That's actually the word. Okay, so usually when you are conversing, conversating, or in a conversation, it's usually made up of words, right? You're hopefully selecting the words that you're using. Tone of voice. Keep coming back to this. It's not what you say, but how you say it. Shout out to my little brother Justin. We used to talk about this in production all the time. We worked on a particular show, and people just didn't know how to talk to us. It wasn't what you were asking us for, it's the way you was asking. Okay, that's at the bottom. And then nonverbals, right? Communication. So that's facial expressions. Maybe your head turns. Body language. Body language communicates a lot more than your words. So if you're talking to somebody you don't like, they know that. You know what I mean? Whether you could be using all the most flowery words in the world, but if you are rolling your eyes when they're talking, or rolling your, you know what I mean, rolling your neck, all of that says a certain thing. Or if you're super closed off when you talk to them, or your shoulders are up or tense, like all of that means something. Okay.
Or you have this face.
That's Pam's go-to, usually.
I won't tell you what they call it around here because it's not very nice.
We may say it on a different, but it is really Pam when she's judging really your regular intelligence. We're not talking about your emotional intelligence or your conversational intelligence. She be looking at people like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say. So we have
better though.
We have a longer inappropriate term for it, but we'll spare you that. But
my secret is out. I'm gonna have to do better now.
You see that face, you know what I mean. Anyway, So yes, so hopefully your goal of conversations is for you to be encouraging and uplifting the people you're communicating with, not tearing them down and deflating their confidence. You want to uplift the human spirit. Okay.
Yep.
So using positive words and tones, saying things like, you're great. You're doing great. I believe in you. Thank you. I really appreciate you. I'm in the middle of directing the show right now, and I'll be using these on the go too. Okay. Even in emails, just to communicate that I appreciate you taking the time and the energy. Effort. Making the effort,
and sometimes it's not the way you want it to be, but the person made the effort.
So just acknowledge.
You can genuinely appreciate the effort.
Let some of them control issues go. And listen, in an industry like mine, control is everything. Time is of the essence. So you can get crazy, but I know how to manage my emotional intelligence. Therefore, it helps me to manage that of those people around me, and the anointing flows from the top down. Okay.
Amen.
Some of y'all though, it's all negative, right? It's all, you stupid. I don't have time for this.
Why would you do that?
This isn't good enough. Like, what is this? What is that? And granted, we all fall short.
This is my favorite one. Man, I should have just done it myself. Like, if this is what you was going to give me, this, I could have done, we've all been there.
And sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes you've grown up in environments that are full of this kind of toxicity, and it just feels normal to you. It's not, but it feels normal to you. But maybe you didn't know that until right now. This is the way we always talk to each other. That doesn't mean that it's the best way to do things.
And you are not creating a legacy of generational wellness with that kind of conversation.
So listen, we're not here to judge. We're not perfect either. Okay. But it is crucial.
Absolutely not me.
Neither. But it is crucial. Here's the thing. We usually, if we are talking about you, we're usually talking about you with each other. Okay. Very rarely are we going around talking crazy about people. We try not to do that. Okay.
And I tell you what we always do. We always do, even if we have
we preface it by I know I shouldn't be saying this.
Now, I wasn't going to say that part, but the other part is, I think we always do try to figure out, why might that person be acting that way?
That's true. Our therapist,
which is the empathy part of why we talk so much about empathy, because we've had to practice it so much
with each other, really.
With each other the most.
So shout out to our therapist, Tremaine Walker, who is the GOAT, the best, the homie. We literally met with him today every 2 weeks. And he really sort of told us this thing when we first started seeing him that really stuck with me, which is behavior makes sense, right? And I think it's something that replays in my mind, that I try to keep sort of close to the chest and close to the cuff when dealing with humans and myself, which is behavior makes sense, right? Yes. Nobody is doing things randomly. There's a context, which we usually only talk about that in church when it comes to the Bible, but it applies to all things, okay? There's a set of contextual information, situations, circumstances, incidences, past things that have happened that makes whatever this person is doing
makes sense to them.
In this particular moment, makes sense to them. Now, it might not make sense to you, but that's your job as an empathetic detective to figure out why this person's acting the way that they are.
And it might not be healthy for them. So that's another thing. If you can figure it out, then maybe you can help them. You can help them see why it may not be the healthiest way for them to approach the situation. But the behavior initially makes sense.
At some level. It might not make sense to you, but it makes sense to that person.
And so the more empathy that you can have, then the more you can get to the layers of why did they react that way, which in turn made you react a certain way. Because if somebody does something, your behavior back is going to make sense too. So that's something else that you need to unpack as we're going through.
Big facts. And, that's just all a part of being an empathetic human being. Sometimes, now you got to be emotionally intelligent. Don't recognize it and then come out that's wrong. Okay, we just talked, that's negative. We want to stay in a positive zone. Okay. But all of that is saying that your words, your tone of voice, understanding that behavior makes sense. There's a context for why this person is acting like this and treating you this way in a moment. So you just need to woosah, usually take a breath, pause. Don't say the very first thing that comes to your mind, because it's usually usually your A answer is not the best answer. It's your most initial reaction, but it ain't the best thing to come out your mouth.
Listen, so we're gonna talk about that a lot more.
Pause, okay, for a minute. And assess your tone of language, your word choice, your facial expressions. That's usually the first thing you can fix. while you're communicating with other people, because verbal and nonverbal communications are opportunities in your everyday communication to celebrate the people that you're talking to. Let them know that you see them, and what they're bringing to the table, right? And it's a chance for you to see your fellow man in their fullness of their humanity, whether it's good or bad, and celebrate, correct, whatever needs to be done, but make sure it's an opportunity to have conversations and engage with people so that you really see where they are at that time, at that moment, on that particular day. It could change an hour from now, but this is particularly important in families, and I assume marriages. I'm not married, but
you see enough though. Let's just put it like that. Shut up, girl. But and how you deliver the message. We talked about your expressions or whatever, but your speed. Like, have you ever met somebody that just talks so fast, this, that, and the other, whatever?
Or never takes a breath.
Never takes a breath, so you can say what you think monologue. Or whatever. You at some point your brain goes, wah, wah, I'm out. I can't even make the effort to continue the conversation because of how fast you're speaking. Or conversely, talk so slow, so soft. And so, like, do you know what you're saying? Do you believe what you're saying? So how do you make how do you balance your conversations so that they're respectful, they're believable, they're confident, they're encouraging,
be super aggressive,
they care about people, don't be super fake. I hate the super fake.
Oh, honey,
yeah, you just like think about what you're saying, and there's nothing else like putting yourself in the person's shoes. Like, say, is this the way I would want somebody to talk to me?
That's really what it
is. This the way that I would want?
Think about you. Granted, some of the ways we think about ourselves are unhealthy. Which is why we be having these conversations. But hopefully, if you've been watching this for a while or listening to this for a while, you start to identify some skills that help you be better.
And some things where I could be better at that.
I could be better. We could be better at half the stuff we be talking about. So.
But it's helping us to talk about it and do the research about it. And, as usual for me, I'm concerned about the children. I'm like, how can you teach children to be mindful of the words and the tone and the language they say? And, as we always talk about, you got to role model it. Like, you can't.
Can I take a pause? Take a pause here. Listen. We actually were having this conversation at a Juneteenth dinner, okay? Where some of the baby boomers are realizing some of their parental tactics were not the best. Okay. We had a whole conversation about whoopings, and, culturally we've learned that from somewhere, and it was about keeping particularly Black kids alive because we do that a lot in our culture, but how it could be construed as negative now, and maybe we would have made some different decisions. I will say the same thing. Now, I ain't got no kids. I got nieces and nephews and a bunch of kids that I watch. Shout out to all the families that trust me with your children. Sometimes the gentle parenting, sometimes y'all be letting the kids really slide. They be saying some stuff that I be like, what? Or, they be really in grown folks' conversation. Like, we was with some kids, we ain't gonna say, I won't say no names, as Destiny's Child once said. But the way the little girl was responding to 3 grown
people,
women, I said, what's going on here? But y'all be raising the kids like they're an equal footing. I understand, but there's still respect levels, boundaries, and parameters that need to be set. Y'all letting all the gentle parenting technique people and this person and that person. I get it. There's some correcting, and then there's like an over course correction. And some of y'all over course correcting on your kids, where I just be like, because I can't say nothing to them. If you're not saying nothing to them, if I say something to them and then you go back and don't reinforce what I said, what is the point? So saying all that to say,
and for us, we have full adult word conversations from the time you were 1. Like, when you started talking in full conversation.
I never had baby voice.
Because I always spoke to you in full sentences and conversation, but they were respectful.
Which is how I talk to kids now. Like,
conversations. I would ask you a question. I would listen for your opinion. I would answer with what I thought was my answer. I would ask you, do you think something differently about that? And I can remember my family going, y'all talk too daggone much. You talk to her too daggone much. But I knew what I was trying to create, within her. So,
and that's not to say that like there's a space where like, you know,
we'll pull it back.
A child should stay in a child's place. They should be seen, not heard. Like some of that's old school, right? But I think it's the shift in the mentality of like you are raising a little human. Like they're not gonna be 3 they whole
forever.
Life. They're gonna be 13 and 23, and some of the things that you let slide might get a little wild later. So just being mindful.
Yeah, and everybody's not gonna.
Everybody ain't gonna have respect.
Everybody's not gonna have empathy. Everybody's not gonna have the same empathy that you may have, you know, for your child. Empathy can go, like you said, it can go too far. There's a balance. There's a balance to everything. You know, and before you criticize or you judge, like this is how you help children think about empathy. What do you think that other person is feeling? How do you think that other person is feeling?
And grown people.
And grown people, exactly. If you can stop and take a breath when you are ready to go off because somebody says something that you're like, I didn't really like that. But again, take a minute. Why might that behavior make sense? Why might that person have said that like that? And sometimes you got to, like you said, you got to walk away and think about it a little bit later. But it is such an important skill to learn throughout life, throughout your career, throughout your school, with your job, whatever it is. If you are that person that everybody knows, you don't think about anybody but yourself and you pop off all the time, it's going to ultimately affect your paycheck. I'm just going to tell you, it's going to ultimately impact your bag.
And that just ain't corporate America.
It's not. If you have clients and you run a business and you don't know how to be empathetic toward your clients or talk to them in a certain way, it's going to affect your money. It's going to affect your money in the long run.
And your legacy as a human being.
Yeah, and your relationships with people. And why? Why when you could learn how to talk to people better? When you can say to yourself, what if I say this instead of saying that? Maybe that might be received a little bit better, right?
And you might not do it right away, but we're just saying to actively start to interrupt the thoughts and your automatic responses, right? Yeah. To be like, okay, let me think about this. Even if you pop off in a moment, like, yeah, I couldn't do it, I messed up. But if you,
I got somebody I got to apologize to something about right now. I was like, I didn't even remember
really talking about it for the longest
doing
time.
it, and I was like,
in a space, like,
I don't know what made me do that. Like, I felt really bad. So,
she was mad at them at the time, is what she came to realize. Which is why
no, I wasn't mad at the people. I think I figured it out, but we'll talk about it all offline.
Okay, once Pam has repented and came to the altar.
Yes. No, I wasn't mad.
But anyway, start to rewind in your mind and see if you can't figure out another way.
Yeah. It's a skill. It can be taught. You want to not have conflicts and misunderstandings if you don't have to.
If you don't have to. And some of y'all don't know that you don't have to have a conflict every day. You don't need to live in that space every day.
It doesn't have to be drama every single day.
Cholesterol.
Yeah.
You know, some of y'all ain't even getting a paycheck. Okay, Mona Scott at least be paying her people for going off on international television. Y'all just be mad for no reason.
Listen, there are a lot of resources out there that can help you with these skills. One thing, you can do a gratitude journal. You know what I mean? Or have a gratitude time with your family. You can say, today we're going to talk about 2 or 3 things that we're grateful for. And that will encourage empathy. That will encourage conversations. That will help you hear how your child, is thinking about things in the world, or your spouse, or whoever it is that you work with. Let's, stop for a moment and pause and say what we're thankful for today.
Also, role playing is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
So even if, let's say you messed up, you watched this episode and then you was like, I'm gonna do better, and then you messed up. The next time, before you engage with this particular person or this particular situation, find somebody you trust. It's a safe space you can role play. Like, so let them say what you feel like that coworker is gonna say the most outlandish thing, right? And then you get to practice your response, so you just don't go for the knee jerk, which could sometimes be the jugular.
Yeah.
We have a couple other ways that you can practice empathy.
Reading stories if you're reading stories to your children,
to the babies. Stories are so impactful.
Yeah, it's not just the story itself. What do they think about the story? What do they think about the character? How is the character feeling when this happened? What what's the backstory of the character?
Context.
And How might it have been different how might the situation have changed if somebody had done something differently? Because you always want people to understand you have a choice. You can change the way the situation and the consequences are going if you make a different choice.
Yes. I give you an example of that. So Swarm was like a thing everybody was talking about, and they didn't really like Dominique. Everybody agreed Dominique Fishback was acting down, right? But they had their issues with Dre. And one of the things I heard her talk about, which I kind of felt like I heard her talk about it before I saw the last episode, but it made a lot more sense after I saw the last episode. I won't spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it. But she was pretty much saying that the character of Dre was acting the way that she was acting. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. Because she never really had anybody to help her cope through her grief. Not just about her friend that unfortunately is murdered. That's a little bit of a spoiler, but it happens in the first episode, so whatever. But also throughout her life, right? She experienced a lot of trauma that nobody was really able to help her with because she didn't come from the most stable home environment in life. And so Dominique was like, this is really hard for me to play, but I try not to judge my characters. But I had to think like, okay, her behavior makes sense because nobody's helped her cope through these things, which is why the ending got the way that it was. And people were like, that was weird, but I totally understood where they were coming from. So shout out to them in that. All right, here's a few quick tips to also help practice empathy. Modeling empathy. Okay, this applies to anybody any age. We say this: you can't be what you're not. You can't give what you don't have. Okay, so modeling empathy first starts with yourself, right? So being empathetic about the things that you do or don't do or say or don't say or whatever, like really trying to break down your own behaviors and your emotional, conversational, behavioral context for yourself. And then you can start to do it for other people, right? And then you can teach it to your kids, your significant other, this person, you're that person. But you have to model it first. You have to sort of reverse engineer empathy and feeling, empathy for other people and feeling empathy for yourself. So then you can start to model it for some other people. And even if you disagree with the person or whatever, like still trying to come from an empathetic place. And hopefully the more that you model and give empathy, then your kids and your significant other and your coworkers and whoever will model that behavior right alongside you.
Cool. Especially if it's a behavior thing, you can say to a child, I don't understand why you did that.
Why would you do this?
Why did you do that? I want to understand why you were doing that. What was your thought pattern?
They're really good at that on 90s sitcoms. You remember, they don't do it so much now because they don't really be no parents. These kids be raising themselves on the
There are no parents on the show.
Strange. Oh but gosh. That's a quintessential 90s dad. They would come and be like, why did you do this, Laura, on Family Matters? Or Will, what are you and Carlton thinking? Right? Then they would have like this monologue. But that was teaching us to be able to explain ourselves and our behaviors.
Which brings to the second point. Discuss the emotions. If somebody says, I'm afraid of the dark, don't just say there's nothing to be afraid of. There is something to them because they are afraid. So the more important question is, what is it about the dark that you're afraid of? So that you can kind of get to the root of the problem. Or, like married conversations or whatever. I've asked you 10 times to take the trash out. But every time I have to ask you, can you smell the trash? So it's kind of like, what is it about the trash taking out that's problematic, or whatever your particular thing has to be, whatever it is. I could think of more, but let's just stay
there.
See
this naked ring finger? There's a reason for that.
Let's just stay where they are. And, or if somebody says, I can't stand so-and-so. Like, what is it about so-and-so that you can't stand?
Maybe they can't stand you.
Why do you think you feel that way about that person? What is it that happened
Where is that
to you from? In your life, in your childhood, that you can't stand that person? They probably don't even know that you can't stand them,
Or they remind you of someone
again,
behavior mix.
They remind me.
You. If y'all haven't been to the Usher Raymond show, sorry, this is a complete detour. I don't work
Usher
for him
should be paying you
at all. The Usher Terry Raymond residency is everything. Worked every penny. The venue is bomb. There are no bad seats. Just do it. Okay? You're welcome. Anyway, number 3, to practice empathy at any age, help out with things. Either at the house, within your local community, or globally. So these are volunteerism efforts of some sort, church things, school things, different diverse cultural opportunities. Global Citizens is like one of the biggest global volunteer efforts ever.
Sponsor a child, Compassion International.
Volunteer at the Special Olympics. There's a plethora of things because it helps you develop care for your fellow man, kindness and compassion. Okay, that
all
is
celebrations.
Those are all celebrations, and all help foster empathy further because it helps you to connect with your fellow man and see things from other people's perspective, which is very, very important. So just pick like one or two things, the Facebook people, what is the marketplace? I don't know about the marketplace, but Facebook they got groups, they always got things going on. Your local church, your local Boys and Girls Club, your this thing, your that thing. Just find a thing.
Google, creating empathy.
Google is your friend.
How can I create more empathy? And then praise the empathetic behavior. When you see somebody doing something that they didn't have to do, they really didn't have to do that. But you see that they paid attention to somebody else. I really appreciate the way you helped that lady across the street, or I really appreciate that you double bag my groceries, or you split them, whatever it is. If you see somebody making an effort to do something special, your kids. Oh, I noticed you helped your brother clean up the milk that he spilled and you didn't laugh at him and you didn't, you know what I mean? There's just different ways to pay attention to what people are doing every day and find the place in that where you can celebrate the person that they are, because if you see it, it has to be something that you see, that you appreciate, that then you can acknowledge, and then that's a celebration in an everyday conversation.
We having a celebration. Now stay high. Shout out to Chris Brown and whoever else is on that song. It's a good time. Made me feel like barbecues and cookouts.
Yep. So everyday conversations can either encourage, discourage, uplift, deflate, inspire, celebrate. But we want you to celebrate people in your everyday conversations. Your word choices, your choice, your tone of language, your facial cues, your body language, your delivery, how fast you talk, how slow you talk. All of those things go into what it looks like to be celebratory of people in your everyday conversations. Okay. And you can develop these skills. You can develop more emotional intelligence. You can develop more conversational intelligence. And ultimately, that's going to build better relationships. And that is what we're about over here at Create Generational Wellness. How can you do that for you, for your family, and for the culture? And by being mindful of all that, we're going to have a better world, hopefully. And Lord knows,
I hope so.
We need a better world.
I really do.
Yeah.
So it's a celebration to quote. What's that? Charlie? No. It came from the Chappelle Show. My brain is gone. Was it? It was Rick James. It's a celebration. I think, right? I don't know if he really said that, but Dave said that Rick said that. Yeah. Just like he said, Prince is making pancakes, and that came from Charlie Murphy. So. Anyway, that's it. That's all we have for you today. I don't think we've been before you that long. Like I said, it really just depends on if the Spirit says, say more about that or not in our ear to encourage. We're all coming from a place of encouragement, okay? I hope you don't feel judged or whatever. Like I said, if there was cameras following
we're just trying to be better ourselves over here.
Let me
tell you something. We're trying to be better. We're trying to be better. We're trying to do better. And whatever we learn, we're trying to pass it on to you.
So that when I see you out in the streets, okay, you see me out in the streets, we're more empathetic human beings toward one another. So we're going to bid you adieu. But of course, at I always do it this time, oh, Kanye, are you subscribed? Are you following us on IG, Facebook, fan base? We are at Create Generational Wellness on all of the platforms. Truthful Chats is the podcast. Okay, so if you're listening to this on the auditory wavelengths, please rate, review. That's the only way to tell people that, like, this is worth your time. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that's it, right? Yeah,
I think it is.
I think we have. Do we have one more celebrate episode?
No, we do not. We're going to be moving on to the July.
Is that next week? No, I think
we have one more. We have one more celebrate thing. Okay.
June's been a lit month.
29.
That's what I will say. June's been a lit. And we hope we keep it locked on Sunday. We're going to be having some truthful chats and interesting conversations. With that, we'll holler at y'all and we'll see you next week.